The air hung heavy with incense, a fragrant veil that seemed to wrap around the senses, creating an atmosphere of reverence and peace and anticipation. It was a Sunday, a day of rest, a day of faith. Families dressed in their finest, children holding onto their parents' hands, and elders with prayer beads in hand, all converged on this sacred day. In the village of Radharani Temple, Uttar Pradesh, thousands had gathered. The temple, a beacon of spiritual solace, stood tall amidst the throng of devotees who had traveled from near and far. They came to seek blessings, to find solace, to listen to the words of Bhole Baba. His teachings, a source of comfort and guidance, drew people like a magnet, offering hope and wisdom in a world often fraught with uncertainty. By day's end, the ground would be scarred, not by divine intervention, but by a senseless tragedy. What began as a serene gathering turned into a scene of chaos and despair as the crowd's fervor gave way to panic. The Hathras Stampede, as it would be known, left a scar on July 3, 2024, a date that would be etched in the memories of those who witnessed the horror unfold. A grim reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of negligence. The tragedy underscored the need for better crowd management and safety measures, a lesson learned at a great cost. It was a day that began with hope and ended in heartbreak, a stark reminder of how quickly joy can turn to sorrow. Little is known about Bhole Baba, the spiritual leader who drew the masses that fateful day. He emerged from the hinterlands, his sermons a blend of religious folklore and promises of salvation. His followers, drawn from the villages and towns nearby, found solace in his words. His gatherings, often held in the open, grew in size, fueled by word of mouth and a yearning for spiritual connection. But who was this man who commanded such devotion? And why did his gathering descend into such chaos? The day began like any other at the Satsang. Devotees arrived early, their faces lit with anticipation and reverence. The air was filled with the soft hum of prayers and the scent of incense. The crowd swelled, a sea of humanity pressing forward to get a glimpse of Bhole Baba. People from all walks of life, young and old, had gathered, their hearts united in devotion. The air grew thick with humidity and the heat of bodies pressed together. The sun blazed overhead, adding to the oppressive atmosphere. Sweat trickled down faces, but the devotees remained undeterred, their focus solely on the spiritual experience. Then, a rumor, a ripple of fear, passed through the crowd. Panic set in. Whispers of danger spread like wildfire, and the once peaceful gathering turned chaotic. The narrow pathways became choke points, the press of bodies relentless. People pushed and shoved, trying to find an escape, but there was nowhere to go. The sense of urgency grew, and with it, the desperation. People fell, trampled underfoot, suffocating in the crush. Cries for help were drowned out by the roar of the panicked crowd. The ground became a battlefield, with bodies piling up, unable to move or breathe. When the dust settled, the silence was deafening. The chaos had subsided, leaving behind a scene of devastation. The once vibrant gathering place was now eerily quiet, the air heavy with sorrow. The ground was littered with bodies, lifeless and broken. The aftermath of the stampede was a grim reminder of the fragility of life. Volunteers and emergency responders moved through the scene, trying to help the injured and identify the deceased. The air, once filled with chants, was thick with the stench of death. The spiritual energy that had drawn so many to the event was overshadowed by the tragedy that had unfolded. Families searched for their loved ones, their faces etched with grief and disbelief. The Satsang, meant to be a place of peace and unity, had become a scene of heartbreak and loss. In the aftermath, questions arose and fingers pointed. Where was Bhole Baba when the chaos erupted? Witnesses claimed he was whisked away by his aides as the stampede began. The police launched an investigation, but Bhole Baba remained elusive. Was he a conman who exploited the faith of the innocent? Or was he merely a hapless figurehead, swept away by the tide of his own creation? The search for Bhole Baba became a search for answers, a quest for justice in the face of unimaginable loss. Section 5. Whispers of Identity. Piecing lives back together. The aftermath of the tragedy was a scene of agonizing chaos. Families torn apart searched frantically for loved ones. Makeshift morgues overflowed, the air thick with the scent of decay and the sound of wailing. The identification process was painstakingly slow, each body a story untold, a life extinguished too soon. The government promised assistance, but for many it was too little, too late. The task of identifying the dead, of informing families, of offering solace, seemed insurmountable. Section 6. Crowd Control. A tragedy foretold, a lesson ignored. The Hathras Stampede was not the first of its kind in India, a country where religious gatherings can draw millions. These events, often seen as spiritual and communal celebrations, can quickly turn into scenes of chaos and tragedy. It was a tragedy foretold, a disaster waiting to happen, a consequence of lax safety regulations and a disregard for human life in the pursuit of religious fervor. The fervor that brings people together in faith can also blind them to the dangers of overcrowding. The authorities, often turning a blind eye to overcrowding and inadequate safety measures, share the blame. Their failure to enforce strict safety protocols and manage the massive crowds effectively has led to repeated tragedies. The lack of proper crowd control, which is essential in managing such large gatherings, the absence of emergency exits, which are crucial for quick evacuations in case of emergencies, and the inadequate medical facilities all contributed to the scale of the disaster. When medical aid is not readily available, even minor injuries can become fatal, and the chaos can escalate rapidly. The aftermath of such tragedies leaves families shattered and communities in mourning. The loss of life and the injuries sustained are a stark reminder of the need for better safety measures. It is imperative that government officials and event organizers take these lessons to heart. Implementing new safety protocols, ensuring proper crowd management, and providing adequate medical facilities can prevent future tragedies. There are examples of successful crowd control at large events, showing that with the right measures, such gatherings can be both safe and spiritually fulfilling. It is a matter of prioritizing human life and safety above all else. As we look to the future, let us hope that the lessons from past tragedies are not ignored, but rather serve as a catalyst for change. A future where people can gather in faith and celebration without fear of disaster is possible, but it requires commitment and action from all stakeholders. Section 7. Aftermath and Accountability. The long road ahead. In the wake of the tragedy, there was outrage and grief, followed by the inevitable blame game. Politicians offered condolences, but their words rang hollow in the face of such preventable loss. The judicial inquiry promised justice, but the wheels of justice often turn slowly. For the families of the victims, the path ahead was long and arduous. They deserved answers, they deserved accountability, and they deserved to know that their loved ones did not die in vain. Section 8. The Human Cost. Stories from the ground. Behind the statistics, each number representing a life lost, were stories of unimaginable grief. There was the farmer who lost his wife and 2 daughters, his world shattered in an instant. The young couple, separated in the chaos, their dreams of a future together extinguished. The elderly woman who went to seek blessings, only to find her final resting place. These were not just numbers. They were lives, hopes, and dreams snuffed out in a moment of avoidable tragedy. Section 9. Preventing Future Tragedies. A Collective Responsibility. The Hathras Stampede serves as a grim reminder of the importance of safety measures in large gatherings. It underscores the need for stringent regulations, effective crowd control, and adequate emergency response systems. It is a call for accountability from organizers, authorities, and even attendees. It is a plea to prioritize human life over blind faith to learn from past mistakes, and to ensure that such tragedies are never repeated. Section 10. In Memoriam, a prayer for the departed. As the dust settles and the world moves on, the memory of the Hathras Stampede lingers. It is a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of negligence. Let us remember the victims, not just as numbers, but as individuals with families, dreams, and aspirations. Let their loss be a catalyst for change, a call for greater awareness, and a commitment to ensuring that such tragedies are never repeated.